Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. Fremde, étranger, stranger. Glücklich zu sehen, je suis enchanté.
Well, how's everybody doing? Big welcome to everybody that's showing up for this lecture on international security implications for whoever the next president of these United States will be. I thought it might be helpful to give you an idea of the presidential daily briefing. This is usually 2 to 3 times a week. The President of the United States, along with whoever he or she wants to be in the room. This usually includes the Vice President, National Security Advisor to the President, Secretary of Defense, sometimes the Secretary of State. As far as the people running against the sitting president, once the opposing individual receives the other party's nomination, they are by tradition allowed to have the presidential daily brief as well in order to spin them up on these sorts of current international security events and concerns that they're going to have to deal with from day one of being sworn into office. This is a tradition that goes back 50 years and continues today with Joe Biden being the Democratic nominee. So 2 to 3 times a week, depending on his schedule and his preferences, a senior briefer from the Central Intelligence Agency will sit down and give him and, if he wants, Vice President candidate Kamala Harris, and if he had known designees as Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State, they could also attend this briefing, although he doesn't have those nominees known at this time. Meanwhile, the president continues to get his presidential daily brief, again, 2 to 3 times a week. So what I'm going to do is walk you through what one of these looks like, of course, on the unclassified level, just to give you a taste of what whoever the president is going to have to be dealing with from day one in the office. So I'm going to share my screen with you here and pull up a map. Right, and let's go through some of the key points. Let's hit a couple, maybe 4 key points. One is the largest country landmass on Earth, Mother Russia. Here, not only does the upcoming president have to worry about, of course, election security, but ongoing sort of what we call great state conflict. So as Russia is becoming more assertive in the region, particularly in places like Belarus, but also down in Syria, you can see, this is becoming an increasing concern to U.S. national security interests. Primarily here you have a NATO, these are all NATO allies in here, right up to the Baltic states. Belarus is not a NATO ally, neither is Ukraine, but certainly Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania are. So by treaty, should Russia move into any of these 3 states, the US and NATO would be bound by treaty to assist them. Hasn't had to come up yet. Only time Article 5 of NATO has been invoked was during 9/11. Another key factor here always is China and China's expansionism. You have to remember China wants to be a major player, again, a hegemonic power, certainly in the region, if not beyond that. They're actually all over the South China Sea, where a huge percentage of the world's oil passes through here, pushing U.S. forces back, not offensively, but in a defensive manner, in a way they call it area denial and access denial. So as they sort of build these artificial islands in the South China Sea, it makes it increasingly difficult for the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force to patrol the seas and the skies to ensure the free flow of oil in the region. This, of course, makes allies like Japan, Philippines, even Vietnam, which is an ally very, very nervous. Trying to keep this short here, so just to hit the highlights, North Korea, of course, is an increasing concern, as within the past couple of years, they've developed a missile capability that is capable now of hitting the continental United States for the first time with, we now know on the unclassified level, nuclear weapons. So they have this as a deterrent, unlike what Saddam Hussein did not have in Iraq, and Muammar Gaddafi did not have in Libya. The Kim dynasty has pretty well protected themselves from that sort of invasion. If you do a lightning speed invasion to overthrow the Kim dynasty, let's say, they would still have time, almost certainly, to launch a few of those nuclear weapons, some of which may be able to be shot down, some of which could very likely cause a great deal of destruction, if not to the continental United States, then with absolute certainty, South Korea, Japan, Hawaii, Guam, the Philippines, anywhere in that region. So these are key things to keep into concern. Another key strategic concern for international security that the next president is going to have to continue to deal with is Iran. Most of you are familiar with all the turmoil that is going on in the Middle East region. A lot of that is because of Iran and Saudi Arabia in this sort of Cold War dispute, trying to keep this, Saudi Arabia is a U.S. friend. Iran is declared a U.S. foe. So the United States policy is for completely backing Saudi Arabia here, which is a Sunni-dominated state, versus Iran, which is a Shia-dominated state. Iran, since the invasion of Iraq and the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, has been very successful about extending its influence far beyond its borders. It is the key influencer now in Baghdad, the key influencer in Damascus, in English Damascus, the key influencer in Beirut, and becoming more and more of a key influencer there in Sana'a in Yemen. All of this, of course, is perceived as very threatening by Saudi Arabia. So you're going to have to continue to be concerned about this relationship and its potential for absolute crisis, particularly here in the Straits of Hormuz. This is where you have 30% of the world's oil flows from this strait. Now, the U.S. isn't necessarily dependent upon Saudi Arabian or Iranian or any Middle Eastern oil nowadays, but the world market certainly is. The U.S. has a huge air base here in Qatar, Al Udeid, and a huge naval fleet base here with primary responsibilities for keeping secure this area. However, should Iran wake up tomorrow and give the order to mine this area, they certainly could. It would shut down that 30% of oil for the time it would take for the U.S. naval minesweepers to come in through here and get those. That would be a days long process, which would completely throw the global economy into disarray. So, welcome, Mr. President, to your new job. These are just a few of the items that you'll have to be absolutely concerned with. I'll go back here to trying at least to get back here. So, this is the time I would say, are there any questions? Another thing I would say is those are all the problems or crises in international security, key focuses of concern that any president is going to have to be aware of fully and briefed on from day one. Whether that would be Trump or Biden. Now, you might be interested in what are some differences in how these two might approach these problems. The main differences boil down to allies. The current president has been dismissive of the importance of allies like NATO, while Biden has spent really a career supporting NATO and our allies. And as what you can see is a very combustible international security environment. The other is working through the United Nations. The current president, again, has been dismissive of that sort of multilateralism, whereas Biden has been much more supportive of using the United Nations to attempt to benefit U.S. national security interests in balance rising powers such as China, which is not easy to do, and to discourage Russian belligerence, which again, none of this is easy to do, as well as sanctioning North Korea, although there's been about as much sanctions on North Korea as there can be. So I'm not here to give you any answers to these complex questions. I'm simply trying to show you the gravity and the complications that come January 20th, the president, whoever that is going to have to be fully briefed on. So you got a taste of the presidential daily briefing, which usually lasts for half hour, uh, depending on how many questions you have from the president. Presidents have had this. It's up to them how serious they take it and so forth. They have a large binder that is brought to them every morning, should they choose to read through it, and then they get an oral briefing as well. So I hope this is complicated some of the issues for you rather than clarified them. If I did my job properly, you're more puzzled than ever, and you'll take some more upper division political science classes where we can really get in the weeds on some of these issues. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.